Welcome to Coast District Board of Directors regular board meeting, September 27, 2023. Roll call, please, Jean.
President Burke.
Here.
Vice President Coughlin.
Here.
Board Member McKinney.
Is on vacation.
Thank you. Board Member Cheryl. Here. Board Member Hannah.
Here. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does someone here have an extra pen?
Next one over here.
Yeah, I gotta see if Katie can.
If we do have any member of the public who would like to address the board on matters that are not on the agenda but are within the jurisdiction of the district, any members of the public would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public session. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Moves and moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
Board Member Hannah.
Yes.
Board Member Cheryl.
Yes.
Vice President Coughlin.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0-1 absent. Continue.
Moving on to item 6, continuing business. Review and discuss and approve the fiscal year 2023-24 financial budget. Chief Cox?
Thank you, President Burke. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. In front of you is the final budget for the 23-24 fiscal year. If you remember, back in June, we approved the preliminary budget that was looking at projected numbers for the last fiscal year. This budget has the actual numbers for last fiscal year. The thing to note is really that the total revenue is higher than we anticipated. And with that, our total kind of reserves, overall reserves, are also higher. The budget in front of you calls for an operating and capital expenditure plan of $18.1 million with an anticipated revenue of 15.1, with a basically under of about $2.9 million operating expenditures compared to actual revenues. Combine that with the fact that we have just over $11 million in fund balance rollover from the prior fiscal year. We believe we'll end the final fiscal year about $8 million, with about $8 million, $6 million of which will be transferred to LAIF and class accounts, and $2 million will be used for operating reserves. Specifically in the budget, what we've identified based on the conversations of the last meeting is really a few changes. One is not changing this fiscal year the Point Montero or Half Moon Bay benefit assessment, but leaving it as it is for this fiscal year. Leaving the anticipated revenue from the ALS JPA static based on the fact that there may be some changes in dispatch costs in future years. And another big one that we have added that was a result of the preliminary conversation was increasing our 4321 expenditure, which is our PERS contribution for retirement, by about $1.5 million in anticipation of a buy-off or a closeout of the miscellaneous employees category that we plan to bring before you before the end of the calendar year. Just a final note, all of the categories for volunteers are also now broken out, just like the preliminary budget for this next fiscal year, so we can track the volunteer program a little more precisely. Fire Station 41 is accounted in here, Fire Station 44 is accounted in here at about $1.5 million, and that's for the anticipated soft costs of the architect as well as the temporary facility that we're working on. We do plan on keeping $2 million in the general operating reserves. And on the internal services fund, we anticipate a final amount of about $19.9 million in LAIF, of which we will take $1.5 million of that, put it in a class investment, and actually pull it out of LAIF completely. But that LAIF distribution does show for this fiscal year a plan of $14.5 million for the new Fire Station 44 hard costs. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Before we have any questions, let me open a public hearing to see if any member of the public would like to make any comments on our final 24 budget. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask the board members there's questions of Chief Cox or any general comments. Okay.
Good, two questions, Chief Cox. One is, the sentence is, weed abatement contractor expenses are being reduced by $400,000 to $50,000.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you remember our vegetation abatement plan, we had the 2-year ramp. I think the first year was about $50,000. The second year was a couple $100,000 for the additional weed abatement. And that was the outlay that the district spent on the contractor that we would then get reimbursed for on the tax roll. Since we have culminated that weed abatement program, or what we call the vegetation abatement program, we don't anticipate having that expense this next year.
So when we had talked about in the vegetation committee, the idea of a master plan of laying out, all of the different parcels that might need different types of weed and vegetation abatement through time, we really have made that much progress for across the whole territory that CFPD serves?
Yeah, that's a great question, and probably would be a good idea to reconvene on the Vegetation Management Committee to look a little bit more in detail about whether the intent has been met or whether there's more work to be done.
All right.
So yeah, I'd look for the Vegetation Management Committee to give us some kind of direction on that.
Okay.
Okay.
And first, and so Chief,
Cynthia, you move.
I do have a second.
Sure.
The second question has to do with it's line 5733, training materials and supplies, sir. Previously, that number was $35,000. Now it's $500. So that's a pretty precipitous drop. And there wasn't any real notice or consultation. We talked about that budget line item the first time in a meeting together with Chief Armstrong. I understand that the way it was reduced is you look at what we spent last year, which was $0. And then therefore that's how this number came to be. But I would like to say that perhaps this deserves more careful consideration. So it is making a contribution to the Coastside Fire Protection District. And just for example, these little brochures, which is just a simple multicolored trifold that explains what the CERT program and CERT training is here on the coastside. It's the thing we must frequently fill out and pass around. And in this last month, for example, with the Montero Art Fair, several other things we did, and the coastside, Great Coastside Shakeout, we had 500 of these printed, and just that at the UPS store with the CERT discount and the volume discount that we got for 500, we still spent over $500 for that. So that would have wiped out our whole budget if we had asked CFP to come to do the color copying. That would have wiped out our whole budget in one move. So I just think we need to think perhaps more carefully, but CERT could present a budget for consideration instead of just reducing this from $34,000 to $500.
So hey, what line item, what number was that, please? I didn't.
5733.
37?
5733.
And I'm happy to add context to that line item. If you look at previous budgets, that has been general training materials for the entire district, training supplies and materials, as well as CERT. So what we have done this year, and in years past, 21-22, we used about 10% of that budgeted amount, or $6,600. In 22-23, we used about 25% of that amount, of about $17,000 of the budgeted $70,000. So for me, the breakout of CERT from the general training supplies is really just indicative of past performance or past years, what has been spent. I think it does bring up a good point in regard to CERT about aligning the expectations of whether the CERT budget is a Coastside Fire District liability or whether that is a liability of the 501c3 and how that plays together. And I think that I'd be happy to, incorporate that and have that a part of the budget conversation.
Thank you. That would be a good conversation.
Very good. Did you pursue it directly with the chief?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Great. Patrick, did you have a question?
I've reviewed this since the first time I looked at it, and I think Chief Cox has covered anything that was pertinent that was changed in the beginning of this. Good, thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Let me make just a couple of comments. Some of this may be redundant to do it, but I would, first of all, say that I think the 24 budget is very reasonable and conservative in terms of what's been presented to us here today. I'd like to certainly acknowledge and thank staff for the outstanding job they've done managing our finances. My compliments to everybody involved with this, to make sure you've done an excellent job with that. I think it's pretty obvious that one of the things this board is going to be aware of, that a year from now, we're going to have another sizable fund balance. And we need to think ahead in terms of what it is that we need to do with that and how we're going to do it. We're going to go from, we've gone from in 1 year from a fund balance of some 6 million, roughly to 11 million, and we'll have another fund balance, large one, a year ahead. I'd also note that a year ago, when we went to the budget, we were concerned about whether we would receive ERAP funding, and now we're currently pretty sure that we will receive the full $1.5 million for that. The 5% increase in CAL FIRE is certainly part of the contract. It's certainly not a surprise and all at all. And I believe the chief mentioned that 1.5 to SKP company that's handling 44 and for the temporary facilities shows that we're well on our way to reaching, putting a shovel in the ground on 44 at one point. And the bottom of this thing, it mentions again that we have a 3.7 balance, $3.7 million in PAS, which continues to perform very well. And by Cal class investment, interesting enough, I had a conversation that went online just to look at what the difference is between Cal class, which is a separate organization, started and funded by the California Special District Association of Leading Cities, and an investment, back turnover investment. And currently they, or I should say, when I spoke to them 2 weeks ago, their fund, basic fund is earning 4.5%, which is roughly 1% higher than late at that point in time. I'm not sure today exactly what that is, but I think Cal class gives us some diversification, which financially certainly is desirable. And Chief Cox mentioned the parcel tax, and I would hope that a year from now, actually next June, that the board would take a look at parcel tax in the old Point Montera and Bill Half Bay organizations. It in total amounts to $300,000, and I think there's an opportunity to do something that governments don't do very often. That is reduce taxes. By the way, we've reduced that tax at least twice already, before, maybe 3 times. And even if we reduce it, it would still be on the books, so that any board in the future would like to reinstate it, they would have that ability to do it. There is a sizable number in there, and part of it you're seeing some $650,000 for structural improvements to our facilities, and that's fine. We want to keep them up to date and modern and all things. And when you see the new fence has been installed around here and other improvements that need to be done, taken care of. So with that, those are my comments. JD?
No, you covered everything. That's very nice.
And I will make a motion to approve the final budget of fiscal year 2023-24. Do I have a second?
Second.
Says you.
Any further comments? Roll call, please, Jane.
Board Member Hannah,
Yes.
Board Member Cheryl,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes 401 absent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, item 7 to new business, introduce an amendment to an ordinance number 2024, amending rate and fee schedule to cover transaction fees associated with electronic payments received by the district. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President Berkey. There is a hand raised. I don't know if you want to address that now or not.
I'm sorry.
Sid has her hand.
Rick the hand?
Sid has her hand.
Oh, Sid. Sid, did you wish to explain?
Well, there she is, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to just ask about, I thought I heard you say you're going to reduce the parcel tax, and then on tab 3, it says you're going to charge people interest who use their credit cards. So those, if you could just explain the difference between, I've never paid anything but through my parcel tax. So why is it that some people are paying by credit card? That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. I'm happy to answer that, President.
Yeah.
The item that's in front of you is really an ordinance to increase the credit card transaction fee that we charge for people who pay an invoice. And when we say pay an invoice, that's usually for prevention services, fire inspections, plan reviews, smoke detector tests. When we do that using the online mechanism, there is a fee or a percentage that Square charges the district to process that. And this ordinance is really just increasing that fee that's being charged to us by Square. The kind of for context, the district started using credit cards during COVID. We saw times of payment going from a couple weeks, in some cases, to a couple hours when people were getting their plans in for submittal. So it is a good service for the residents of the district. However, there are fees that are borne that should not be borne by the district to use the online service.
Thank you. I think that explains it. But I know that when the county bought the Coast House at 230 South Cabrillo Highway, that they took the parcel tax fee off. And when you guys have a service call there, do you have to bill the county every time you go out? Or is that just like we absorb it as a district?
Yeah, great question, Sid. We do have a policy of charging for false alarms. So Chief Griffin can definitely add context to this because he's familiar with that address. But if we go beyond a certain number of times a month, we do pass on the fee for what it costs our district to respond to that location. And I do know that we have passed on that fee to 230 South Cabrillo in the past.
And they by credit card?
I don't know how they pay. Credit cards, 99% of the time are people doing prevention plan reviews, new construction, and fire inspections.
Thanks so much.
Fees that might be paid, this debt is not part of the parcel tax.
Not part of the tax.
All right, just to make sure. With this for a moment, I'm going to open a public hearing to consider the amendment to the district ordinance setting fees for service. Any members of the public would like to comment? And hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask board members if they would have any questions or discussion. And I make a motion to approve ordinance number 2020-04. Do I have a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussions? Roll call, please, Jean.
Board Member Hannah.
Yes.
Board Member Cheryl. Yes. Vice President Cockrell.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, 1 absent. I'm kidding.
Moving on to business item B, review and approve fixing employee health contributions for retired 101 representative safety members, retired 02 non-representative safety members, and 03 non-representative miscellaneous members. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President. This is boilerplate. This is for an effective date of January 1, 2024. Just want to highlight the fact that CalPERS has advised us that healthcare premiums for retirees is going to increase by 11.78% starting January 1. The resolution is necessary for us as a district to be able to pay that difference for retirees.
Yes. And again, we're obligated obviously to do this. I'm going to see if I can put all these three resolutions together.
Amen.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-43, 2023-44, 2023-45. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. I just made a comment, the chief mentioned, I was surprised that in this district that we are for healthcare, Kaiser had the highest or the largest rate increase, as you mentioned, 11.5%, much higher than any of the other providers, which is here and there. I just thought it was interesting at the point that they did it. But I think we're all aware that costs are rising pretty substantially across the board. I made a motion. Did we have a second?
Yes.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
Board Member Hannah.
Yes.
Board Member Cheryl.
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, one absent, McKinney.
Moving on to, item C under new business, adopt resolution number 2023-46, approving an actuarial study of retiree health liabilities under GASB 7475 dated September 15, 2003. Chief Cox, do you have comments on this item?
Yeah, just that this is required by California Government Code. Just note that it is for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. So it is looking 2 years ago at what the district's overall liabilities associated with retiree healthcare are.
I would only just add to that, each month we get in our packet, this month, these payments are being made out of the PARS trust fund. And every month we get a copy of what's PARS done for that particular month and quarter and all that type of thing. But as I understand it, we're obligated to have this analysis and audit done periodically, and hence we have it. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-46?
Yes.
Second.
Yes.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
Board Member Hannah.
Yes.
Board Member Cheryl.
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
Passes 4-0-1, absent, McKinney.
Moving on to new business item 5, adopt resolution 2023-47, approving the financial statements and the auditor's report for the year ending June 2022. Chief Cox.
Thank you. This is the annual audit that we are required to perform. I just want to draw attention to page 39, the attachment 2, in which the auditors conclude that the procedures are appropriate to express their opinion for the purpose of internal controls, and that they did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls that we considered any material weakness within the district.
I just make a couple of comments. I'm sure maybe and I suspect a number of people have had occasions when they open with dread an auditor's report for the year. And I can assure you this board in the past has had that feeling. It's a pleasure to actually open this audit report and see what's in it. Some good news. And I emphasize the line in the first page that says during the course of the audit, they did not identify any deficiency in internal control that could be considered material weakness. It is an unqualified audit, which is great news all the way across the board. With that, I just call your attention to a couple of things that for information. If you look at page 27, under exactly you're doing with the retirement program and in that case CalPERS. And if you notice halfway down, it gives some sensitivity to the net position liability to changes in the discount rate. And CalPERS from time to time has changed the discount rate or what they expect to make. And it's, I think we have to, that discussion sometimes sounds kind of boring, but if you look at what would happen if they reduced the discount rate, our obligation currently is some $8 million. If they reduce that discount rate 1%, we go to $14 million. It has a sizable difference. So that, kind of academic discussion as to whether they're going to change the discount rate or something, that big news to us. And just as I say, that's nothing we're gonna do, I just wanted to point that out. The other item on page 7, if you looked at that, I think it's important for at least for the public to know, whoops, excuse me, this was 27. At any rate, it says that we have, this district, just emphasized to the public, has no long-term debt. We're debt-free in the terms of any kind of current debt that the district might have that. And page 28, it's just is another interesting observation on my part, and that is the number of prior employees that the district is paying their full health care benefits to from PAS, we're using PAS to pay for it, but the number of participants is 24. When we first went with PAS, if I remember correctly, it was 28, and mortality is, if the plan goes on, happens, will reduce it. That is nothing to, those are just information items that I thought was kind of interesting, but any other comments relative to the audit?
President Burke, I'm curious, you were talking about the discount rate and how 1%.
Just what?
You were talking about the discount rate
Yes,
and how a 1% difference.
Yeah.
is a sizable amount. Is that rate set and used for everyone that's involved with PARs, or is that individual?
no, this is set by CalPERS.
Oh, sorry, CalPERS.
Yeah, that's not, yeah, no, it's the CalPERS board that does that. When they reduce the, in layman's terms, they reduce the rate that they expect to make, it increases the cost, our cost. They're just transferring it to us. That's a layman's explanation.
The higher the number, the lower our cost, the lower the number, the higher.
There was a famous thing, and I can't remember verbatim, but I do remember it. And it was done by a former governor, Greg Davis, who whenever he was in office in the early 2000s, maybe around that time. And at that time, CalPERS was doing very well. And he famously made the statement that all cities and special districts would no longer have to make any payments to CalPERS for retirement, because CalPERS would be earning so much money that it'd be all taken care of. No longer,
There was a period of time where a number of pension plans deferred any contribution. I had a call once to Teamsters pension plan. Some woman that I talked to, they had about 50 employees that were members of the Teamsters union. And they were very happy because the Teamsters, they just told her that you don't have to pay anything into the pension plan. It's generating enough money internally. Now, this was a number of years ago. I'm sure that, of course, all the pension plans have the same experience that the CalPERS did.
any other questions or comments on the audit? Do I have a motion to approve the June 30, 2022 audit financial statement for the Coastside Fire Protection District?
Yes.
Yes, I'll second it. Moved and seconded. Any further comment? Roll call, please, Gene.
Member Hannah.
Yes.
Member Cheryl. Yes. Vice President Cockrell.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yeah.
Motion passes 4-0-1 absent. Continue.
Moving on to Board of Directors and Chief's report. The Finance Committee, we did not have a meeting, but in our packet is the detailed statements for the first 2 months of the year. And frankly, it's too early to get anything specific. There's nothing surprising in there at all, unless anybody has any questions. JB, did you have any?
No, I looked it over.
Nothing further to say about it.
I know they could make this, I know they could make this smaller if they worked that in.
Okay. All right. Volunteer committee report.
Well, I
Director Hannah,
attended,
Director Carl.
Chief Cox and a few other chiefs that I look around here, I'm saying, all attended the volunteers meeting. And it was a very interesting meeting, and Chief Cox, I would defer you to maybe tell the board what you had told the volunteers, and basically give a lot of information about stuff that was coming down the road.
Chief Cox, would you like to add?
Yeah, thanks. And Chief Silva, please feel free to add any context as well. We attended the board meeting, or sorry, the volunteer meeting, their business meeting, which was the first meeting of the month. It was good to kind of hear what their concerns were, what they were working with. A few things that we really discussed that were important is we're trying to really solidify with public safety communications all of the call types that the volunteers get dispatched on. And in fact, today I know Chief Silva was working with Jen Key at PSC on the entire list to make sure that the volunteers are getting dispatched on the initial dispatch for all call types that we have identified that they need to be responding to. Also talked a little bit about kind of what our internal process is on a kind of weekly and daily basis, how important it is that they participate and just the value they bring to the district, as well as kind of initiatives that we have going on to ensure that PPE, radios, safety equipment are making it all the way down to the volunteer ranks, and just encouraging them to also bring any issues forward and start addressing them at the battalion chiefs level, should there be an issue that they need attention to. So a great meeting, always good to see them, and happy to help them get the kind of resources they need to get their issues resolved.
One thing, just to bring up and add, kind of going back to our two individuals that are how far along in the paramedic program. I think they're pretty far along. They're going to start doing an internship shortly, and I wasn't sure if there was. I brought up a question a few months back in regards to whether or not the two individuals would be able to do their internship in this region, in our county, or locally. I think it was initially going to be where they're taking the course, which is in the Monterey area. And I wasn't sure if that had been looked into, Chief Cox.
Yeah, Chief Lord has been working with the EMSA. They are attempting to get resolution on it. The way it works is the school signs a contract with whoever is going to be their agency that provides the field internship time. And it's not as simple as being able to choose wherever. It's really on the school to have that relationship. So Ken has reached out to the MSA. I know he's got another meeting coming up to see if it's possible. We will do all we can to see if we can assist in accommodating that. But at the end of the day, we don't have the contract for their internship. The school has that contract with the ambulance company.
So if I understand, the school, in order to sign off on their completion or graduation point, would have to have an agreement with the department or company that does the internships versus just having the hours in an ambulance or in service.
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of it comes down to just revenue, right? Those ambulance companies are getting revenue from the internships that they're providing to those schools. So if they've been guaranteed a number of internships, or if the school is unwilling to pay another agency to perform those hours, that's where it becomes a real sticking point. And also the medical director for that area has to agree to it as well.
Yeah, we know ambulance companies like making money. So ballpark, then it sounds like it's not a likely thing to have happen. Is that a realistic way to look at it? I mean, it's a stretch.
Yeah, I'd say it's a stretch. I don't think it's a dead issue yet, but I think it's much more of an uphill endeavor than we would anticipate. But it doesn't mean that it's going to prevent them from finishing paramedic school. It just means that for the weeks that they're in their field internship, they'll at least, as of now, have to go with where the school provides that.
Thank you.
Thank you. For me, may I understand that when they finish all of the training, including their internship, they are free to seek their own employer? Would that be an accurate statement?
They are. When they're done with their internship, they will have to pass the national registry test before they'll officially get their paramedic license.
Okay.
At that time, or usually within a few months of that time, they are able to seek employment with an agency of their preference.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else
Well, actually, that brings up a question that was posed to me by one of the students. And if there were any way to start a career here prior to completion, and I know that probably has all kinds of reasons why maybe it's not possible, but is that something?
Yeah. Yeah, so the a couple things. One is we don't have anything. Our lowest rank in the district is engineer. So if you're hired as an engineer, you have to attend. It's 7 to 13 weeks of training before you're able to officially work on the floor. We also don't have the ability to hire somebody and accommodate a specialized schedule straight off the bat for someone who might be in school. And the third thing is, there's no saying that we would be the unit that would hire them. They may get hired by Santa Clara or Humboldt or whatever. What I have recommended to them is the fire apparatus engineer paramedic position. You can apply for that within 6 months of completion of paramedic school. So that should be flown again in the December, January timeframe, end of the year, beginning of next year. And it's at that point that those students should apply for the paramedic engineer position in anticipation of their completion.
And based on just the way you described paramedic engineer, they would still have to go through the engineer training program.
They will, yeah. But the actual classification with paramedic takes into account that you may not be done with school yet. So it gives you that leeway to finish school, then start the engineer academy. Whereas regular non-paramedic engineer doesn't have that accommodation.
Okay, so there's a 6-month prior to finishing paramedic school that you're eligible to apply.
Yep.
Which brings up, well, I'm sorry, this brings up one more question. There's an internship, and refresh my memory, how long is the internship for this training program?
Yeah, there's a field internship, and then there's a kind of clinical internship, and I think total it's about 5 months between the two.
Oh, okay. My thinking was, could the field internship be done here?
Yeah, great question, and that's really where the contract comes down to with the school and the ambulance provider, with who is going to be essentially paid to accommodate those students getting their field internship done.
Thank you.
You know, I really encourage the students to directly get engaged with the chiefs to find out the answers to these kind of questions. I mean, relaying it through us, I think, is secondhand. If I were in that position, I'd want to talk directly to somebody to get the thing. Not that, you know, we shouldn't be involved in knowledge.
I believe they have direct communication, I'm sure, with everyone. I just wanted to bring in a volunteer committee member and board member just to kind of get the answers that Chief Cox. So you bet today. Thank you.
And just to clarify, please, Chief Cox, do they apply for the apparatus paramedic engineer position this December or next December?
This December, yeah. So within 6 months of being completed paramedic school, I think their medic school is a May end date. That would mean essentially any time, end of November, December, January, whenever that next paramedic engineer test opens up, they'll be within the 6 months to get on the list.
Very good, thank you.
Land and structure report, Director Sherrill.
No report.
No report.
Oh,
And
I'll
vegetation
send it to-
management.
Let me send it please to Chief Silver.
Yeah, on like the 44 project.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of been on a standstill a little bit while they're applying for the building permits and all the process they're going through with the county. So we're working with the county now on everything the county's gonna need, for them to submit the packet to the Coastal Commission and all the people that need to see the plan as it comes out. So they're pretty close to that phase right now. So that's just kind of been on a standstill for the last couple of weeks while they work through that. So there hasn't been a whole lot we can do with them right now. So they're just working with them, and as soon as they submit that packet, we'll see how long it's gonna take from there. They're thinking 4 to 6 months. It could sit with the county and all the commissions, and then there's the opportunity for a public hearing, I believe it's called, for the Coastal Commission and other people. So that's an opportunity for people to come forward if they pay their fee. I guess they have to pay a fee to do that with the Coastal Commission. And last time in 41, they said that didn't happen. Nobody came forward and complained, so it went through pretty fast. But it could be a 4 to 6 month slowdown, just waiting for the county to put all their ducks in a row.
Just a question about, has the county put the employees in place for the supervisory positions for the inspections offices?
that we might have been helpful and
New building official, which talking about, say, hold on.
The last update I was given was they went through a interview process, however, they were unable to find a candidate.
So we're looking for the top position and the number 2 position both,
It was my understanding that they're working on filling the number 2 position
okay?
while trying to fill the number 1 position.
That seems like, okay.
Yeah. And as for the temporary housing for the firefighter during that one, we have to have a plan drawn to submit to the county to go through the same process, which I wasn't aware of. So we found out about that. So I have to have a plan drawn, even though it's temporary, it has to go through the coastal commission. The seniors use that we're building a brand new building. We're hoping that some of those things could be exempted because it is temporary. But we just have to start the process with that, and then they're gonna check the boxes and see if it needs to go set up, or if we can side skirt that. We have the contract from the landowner, but I had to tell him that we're gonna have to hold off for a little bit. He's okay with it. Before we can sign anything, we don't wanna have a lease on land that we can't put a building on for 3, 4, 5 months down the road. So we're hoping to get that done in the next couple of weeks as well with the building department. Then as you can see, the fence is moving along in the back. I think in the next week or two, they're gonna start to wait for the motor to show up for the gate here, and then they'll start wrapping around the rest of the building here in the front, and this will be fully secured.
So everybody seem happy with how that's going?
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to the farmers yesterday next door, and they love it because they are pretty certain that the deer walk through our property to eat the Brussels sprouts, so they're actually very excited that we have the fence there to stop the deer from coming through, and yeah, everything's going well.
I was not aware of the dairy versus there in Europe.
I think the deer would probably taste pretty good, if they're eating Brussels sprouts for dinner.
Chief, at some point in time, we've said we're gonna, on building 44, we're gonna have another public meeting.
Yes.
And I would just ask that as soon as reasonable, pick a date.
Yeah, so talking to Austin and Bill, they wanted to get through this planning phase with the building officials because they said things can change.
Sure.
And they want to make sure everybody has their say and their input, so all the final changes are complete before we go to the public. And they said that actually the building department may require us to do another public session anyways for part of it, so it's in the works for sure. Just they want to get past those phases and make
Give as
sure.
much notice as possible.
Yeah.
For sure. The other question is maybe a little bit offline, but are we required or will we be doing a full EIR for that new facility? Who decides that?
At the building department, so I know that they said we're gonna have to do CEQA for sure. As for the other stuff, I don't think anything certain on that at this point. So I know CEQA they said it because it is basically an existing building and we're redoing it. But I think there was a rezoning, some other stuff that they didn't understand because it's the same facility, the same building, just newer. So there's some questions they have that they have to work through.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Is everything in the whole county sort of on suspension until the building department finds its leadership?
No, it's operating. They have an interim building official. They came
Okay.
from city of San Mateo,
Alright.
so it's operating.
So would that individual be able to lead our project through the inspection process?
They're basically working with the right people. They have people to work with, and they're working with like Patrick has a relationship with the person that's the boss of those people. So we have the right people in play to
It's still on the planning
keep
side.
things moving.
Okay, alright. Thank you.
All right, moving on, vegetation management, Director Carpo, what do you have?
We didn't meet, but
Yeah, nothing to be reviewed upon, except I think we'll schedule a meeting for maybe next month.
And
Review.
I was just gonna make a comment that, the only thing, you had those fires up north, and then the weatherman took care of those. So it seems to be near term, nothing's going on. And the only other comment I would have was just as anecdotally, there's a lot across the street from where I live. And some apparatus came in and they cleared it. And so I didn't know whether we had done that because they had waited, or whether they had done it. It turns out they had done it.
They got it.
Yeah, good, so, whatever we're doing is working quite
Yeah.
well, I think.
Okay. Special District Association, chapter, liaison, Director Hannah.
Thank you. Well, this last, August, 4 of the board members attended the annual conference, took some courses that were necessary. enjoyed communicating with colleagues and what goes on in these meetings. Education does a very good job of bringing a large amount of diverse and intelligent people together, especially the instructors and the people who put on the courses are generally engaging and quite enjoyable. So that was very, very nice. It's good to see everyone.
And I know that, Director Carl, I and Director McKinney had attended because we needed to get that classes in for the District of Distinction. Cynthia is all caught up way ahead of us, but that's fine. But it was a good conference with a lot of good information. So I certainly enjoyed meeting a number of people who got some information that was very helpful.
And Chief Cox was there as well.
Yeah, that's right. Moving on, ALS JPA report. I'm going to give you an update on a subject that's somewhat confusing to me, but let me see, and you can perhaps correct me, Chief Cox. She's still already anybody, but there is a discussion going on now between the JPA, which we remember, the ALS JPA, the county, and AMR in terms of who pays for the dispatch center and the dispatch that's going on. And the short version of what appears to be somewhat complicated and unnecessarily confusing is that there is nothing currently in contracts with AMR, the county, or JPA, the county, as to the specific amount of money that's being paid for the dispatch services here within San Diego County. And the county has been talking about some sizable, really sizable increases to the cities and to all the members of the JPA to put into the dispatching center, which I understand they have a new building, and I've never even been there, but very nice. But the comments are that it is not being fully funded by the way they're doing it now. The county is paying additional monies for it, which is kind of interesting because I didn't realize the counties needed to be fully funded on everything they do. But anyway, that seems to be their opinion on the subject. The subject of, and there's nothing formal, however, various members, in fact, as far as I know, all members of the JPA are rather concerned about a sizable possible increase that we would have to pay for that money. And some meetings are going on, discussing various alternatives, and they are discussing such things as moving the dispatch center out of San Mateo County. And you know, if you think about it, in today's world, you don't have to be physically located in any one place in order to do it. But and I'm not suggesting that's action item. There's a kind of discussion that is going on. The other aspect of the voters in San Mateo County, I think it was about at least 5 or 7 years ago, passed, I think it was Measure K, that for additional services that provide for safety and that type of thing. And it's the opinion of a number of the JPA members that those monies that are in that packet would pay for any additional expenses for the dispatch center to do various other things with it. That's another item on it. I bring this up only because it's an ongoing subject. And if in fact there were to be enacted the way it's currently being discussed, it would have a big impact on our budget. End of report. And unless you have any questions. Okay,
Maybe
Chief,
they,
do you have anything else to Chief
No,
Cox?
Chief Cox attend meetings on that stuff. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Any further comments?
No, President Brooke, I think you summarized it well. I think the high level kind of point is right now we are a net recipient for our paramedic services. So the district gets about $150,000 a year from the ALS JPA to offset the training and supplies that we provide paramedic service with. An increase in the dispatch budget of the proportions that are being discussed would make us a net contributor to the ALS program, meaning we would be paying to participate as an ALS provider in the county.
Yes. Okay, I think we'll be hearing more of this in subsequent meetings. All right. The Visionary Preparedness Report, is Chief Cosgrave?
He is there.
Chief Cosgrave? you're on. We'll wait till he gets back and we'll come back to you.
No, I'm here. I have 2 meetings going, so I had to find the right unmute button. Thank you for inviting me. So it's kind of administrative time at DEM. We're working on grants that we're fulfilling and getting audited for and applying for new ones. We have our new director that's starting next Monday. So we're looking forward to that. The Emergency Service Council will be on October 19th, the evening of, and that will be the first meeting that she will be at. I just got off a meeting with Caltrans, which was an update on the 92 that you may be interested in. Previously, they said that when they finished the westbound lane, they were going to have to close the eastbound lane. Today, that was good news. They were saying that they probably won't have to do that. But they said they're still finishing up. The drainage culvert has been put through. They're finishing up the hillside and putting the head walls in. But there, of all things, they says there's a shortage of riprap rock, and that's what they're waiting for to do a lot of the work. So they're holding on, waiting for a supply issue. They didn't give any date of when they're going to reopen the truck lane and put the center divider back in. But they did say that previously they were going to have to cut out more divider. Now they're not going to have to do that if they don't have to shore up the eastbound lane. But they will be putting a larger divider in there when they do it for the repairs because it's a different classification. Last month for the tsunami sirens, we did it remotely from Pacifica. There's 8 sirens in the county. 3 of them are in the city of Pacifica. So we went to their police station, trained their staff how to operate them remotely. We did the broadcast manually instead of using the recorded voice and using the automated computer that does it on the first Wednesday of the month. It worked well. We had people monitoring the different sirens and the speakers, so it went well. This month on October 4th, we will be doing it remotely from the Half Moon Bay Coastside Emergency Operating Center. So if any of the fire commander staff want to be there, we can have a little briefing before the sirens go off, and we'll do it remotely from there and kind of give them an update on the alert and warning for the tsunami sirens. Speaking of alert and warnings, we put out the control burn that's planned for tomorrow, weather permitting and air quality permitting. We put it out in email form only to the entire county, because when smoke is coming from 280, we don't know who wants to get it, right? We can't just tell the San Carlos residents, because people coming from the coast would see the smoke when they're driving over there, and it will be visible countywide. So it went to over 100,000 emails that are registered with us. And I think we've already received about 100 people asking to be opt out of the system. So whenever we send out a message, people only want what they want, and they tend to opt out. A lot of these are people actually that have moved out of the area, so that's not a bad thing. For emails, you have to write back and unsubscribe. For texting, they write stop. We don't know about it. They just become delisted. So we're working on those issues. When we do send out text and emails now, used to only have 2 languages that it could be translated to. We've added 3 more. So there's Spanish and simplified Chinese, which was already there. They've added Filipino, Russian, and Arabic to the list, which were some of the priority ones for this county. And that's what our vendor was able to provide for us. So that's a win. Not of a great concern to people on the coast unless they're going to drive on 101 this weekend, but 101 southbound from San Carlos towards Redwood City will be closed for 55 hours. So I would recommend avoiding that. And then in October 13th to the 16th, the northbound lanes will be closed for that period of time. So it starts Friday at 5 o'clock, or excuse me, at 10 o'clock on Friday night, and they're hoping to have it reopened at 5 a.m. on Monday morning. They're replacing a bridge that goes over a creek just before Whipple, just south of Whipple Avenue. So that's basically my report.
Thank you, Dave. Questions?
Chief, is consideration being given to expanding the use of our tsunami sirens to other alerts if necessary?
Yeah, we actually put in a grant to see if we could purchase some additional sirens. The 8 sirens that we have are specifically engineered to only be heard in the coastal tsunami area. And that's the standard full oscillation tone that goes from high to low. We have programmed them with the European siren, which is a high-low like the European siren would go. I'm not going to say it on recorded tape here, but you can make the sound. And that is a campaign that we're interested in pursuing in this county. It's called High-Low Time to Go. So if you hear that type of evacuation, from communities that have done it with fixed sirens, they have found that the fixed sirens are not very not very well. They don't cover the areas very well. Once you get into a canyon with trees, as loud as those sirens are, they don't conduct the sound very well. So the best thing that they found is programming the police and fire vehicles and emergency vehicles with that high-low tone, which most of the county has disabled on their vehicles. So it's been a program that's been gaining speed in California, and we're going to work with the police and fire chiefs to try to institute that program here in the county. But if there was an emergency, now we could do the high-low siren from our 8 sirens we have. The effectiveness of that wouldn't be in the wildland evacuation area per se, because it's as I said, you know, once we get to the coastal bluffs, they're usually lighter vegetation and not probably the areas that are going to be evacuated first. But we could do that, and that's what we're working on for that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Director Cheryl.
CERT has had a busy month. It started with the Montera Art and Music Festival, which has kind of been a quiet little festival up until this year. And in its 10th year, it became big. And so we were thrilled to have over 50 new signups for CERT, people who want to have training and get involved from the Montera community. We also found that people came to that festival from Pacifica, as you would imagine, but also from up and down the coast. So we were very pleased at the turnout for that event, which we covered. We also, Chief Musgrave and a CERT, who is the librarian at the Half Moon Bay Library, the Half Moon Bay High School Library, invited us to come and host a table at their live service jam, which invites all the different ways that high school students can get service learning credit. And we thought, okay, let's go do that. And we had a very enthusiastic sign up for people now wanting, teens now wanting teen CERT at the Half Moon Bay High School taught as a course. So we're now coordinating through the librarian and the high school to begin to be able to provide that service. Used to be done here apparently prior to 2012, but it hasn't been done since. So this will be another training thing we'll be doing. And then finally, the Great Coastside Shakeout took place this last Saturday. It's an earthquake drill, but it's also that Chief Cosgrave runs through a webinar that people all over the coastside and other agencies subscribe to, or just tune into, listen to, understand what the whole effort is about. And then they get on their radios, and every neighborhood that participates, and we have 41% of the neighborhoods on the coastside participate, sets up a neighborhood command post. And you have the residents have FRS radios, and they call in damage assessment situations from all over their neighborhoods, which go then to the ham operator from their neighborhood, which came here to this room, to the DOC, where they were given directions and instructions with the ham radio operators here, and then that information was sent back to the neighborhood. The purpose is that the whole coastside can be prepared to have communication with first responders and can be the intelligence on the ground, reporting damage assessments if telecommunications go down. And it also serves the purpose that they're never alone. If a resident has an FRS radio, they are not isolated. They can be in communication with first their neighbors and then with first responders. So we were very pleased. This is Chief Cosgrave founded this 4 years ago. This was the 4th annual. And it continues to grow, so we hope next year to be able to report more than 41% of neighborhoods. And report.
Thank you, Sharon.
I just have a question. Was anything learned from what happened over in Hawaii?
In terms of our radio communication or in terms of our CERT exercises?
Service
overall?
exercise.
CERT exercise, we have really been talking about that.
How
And
much is that?
there's been a lot of local interest, so our discussions are running along the lines of, can our sirens alert to more than just tsunamis?
That was the question they had, yeah.
That was a question that, can these sirens do wildfire, you know? Can, if we had to, the difference between Lahaina and the other side is that Lahaina built right up to the water's edge. We have, in most places, a beach there, but what would you take to the beach? We have our backpacks, but what you have in your backpacks, is that what you're gonna need when you get there, based on what we learned from Lahaina? So we've developed a whole list of, if there was a wildfire, what would you need to take with you? We've been talking a lot about evacuation, about teaching people about shelter in place. We've been talking about recovery efforts. How do we recover from something that is really catastrophic? So these are things that we're talking about now in the 32 neighborhoods and through the leadership structure. And we hope to come out early next year with a whole report of, you know, that will be, we're not Lahaina, but it sure looked a lot like us. So what can we do to be proactively prepared should that happen here? Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Attorney's report.
Nothing, thank you.
Fire marshal's report.
Yes, briefly, for the month of August, 40 plan reviews, 50 inspections. We are currently working through the office here is working through our fee study assessment and updating that. We're working with the consulting group. Pumpkin Festival is the 14th and 15th. Yay. And Deputy Fire Marshal Dyer had a baby boy 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations, wow.
And a report.
You got your hand there.
Okay. Fire chief's report.
Just a few items. Engine 40 got back from a 14-day out-of-county assignment up to the Six Rivers National Forest, where they were working on some lightning fires with 4 other engines from San Mateo County. We are going to be losing Battalion Chief Pottinger. We have awarded his transfer to a location up in Shasta County. He's going to be opening up another training facility for CAL FIRE statewide as a battalion chief up there. So we anticipate advertising that job shortly. The staff took part in the Main Street, Reimagining Main Street meeting with the city of Half Moon Bay. I know Chief Silva and Chief Griffin were there to give fires input to make sure that access and egress and access were a part of the conversation as they think about reimagining Main Street. Chief Armstrong and I attended the FireNet 6 meeting, which is basically the South County Communication Zone, and met in Redwood City, and probably have more information about what the future of FireNet 6 looks like here over the next few months. Also been in contact with CalPERS, with Gene regarding the miscellaneous employee plan for retirement and what potential closeout looks like with that. And again, that will be back before the board before the end of the year. No major calls to report for the month, although we did receive an inundation of calls during that smoke when it pushed down last week onto the coast. We were getting smoke checks all the way from the north part of the district down through Half Moon Bay. Luckily, there were no fires, but a lot of concerned calls, obviously. Just to add on to the facility side, there was no, and Chief Silva, correct me if I'm wrong, there were no bids received for the installation project at Station 40, so we anticipate finding a contractor directly for that one, and looking to meet with legal about some remodeling for the bathrooms and some potential path forwards with a contractor. We did get feedback from Granada Community Services District regarding the south lot at Fire Station 41. I forwarded those comments to President Burke for review. And on the equipment side, the new prevention vehicle is in service. The new battalion chief's vehicle is being outfitted currently, and we are still waiting on the delivery of the new Type 1 and Type 3 fire engine. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Phil, did you have any comments?
No, I think we're
Is
good.
that it, Chief Cox?
Sid saw her hand up.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So
Sid has a hand, I'm not sure.
Sid, go ahead.
Who's up?
I did have my hand up from back when Dave Cosgrave was there, but who's ever running the Zoom must not have noticed. So I don't know if you can get him back, but I did want to ask, back in January, the Emergency Services Council put out an RFP, or they voted to put out an RFP for the countywide evacuation plan for emergencies. So I was going to ask him if he knew if they've actually selected a contractor and how far along it is. Maybe Chief Cox knows. And then the other thing is I was going to ask about the high-low time to go thing for the multiple sound sirens, because I think Maui had both tsunami and fire, but they didn't enact either one of them. And I think it would be good to have one for fire besides just tsunami, but we would have to all know the different sounds. And then somebody mentioned that they can do dispatch from out of the area, but it's been discussed on Nextdoor that a lot of people that call into a dispatch center, they don't know the area. So you tell them, oh, I'm at the Mavericks Beach and there's such and such happening, and the dispatcher has no idea where that is. So I'm not too keen on that idea, but I know the county built that great big thing at 501 Winslow for dispatch, I think, and also other emergency services. So does anybody know about the RFP?
I could, I worked in a dispatch center for a while, so if you call from your cell phone, it goes to CHP Golden Gate in this area. So you're actually getting a dispatcher from completely a different area, where I don't even know where their Golden Gate dispatch center is. There's one in there and one in Monterey, kind of for this area, where you're at in the county. So you're getting that service, and they have to transfer you, that they're gonna try to take your information first, and they have no idea what you're talking about, probably because they're not from the area. Once they transfer to PSC, then you may get somebody who's familiar with the common terminology of local areas.
And I do think a lot of people do call from their cell phones nowadays. I see Dave's back on the line. Maybe he heard my question.
Yeah, real quick, this is the fire board meeting, but yeah, the RFP has been awarded and it's moving along. And I really can't comment on what Maui did. They're still working on the reports and things like that. So I don't have an answer for you now.
Okay.
Good to hear, because we on the coast are always concerned about evacuation. Thank you, Dave.
Absolutely.
Okay, just one quick information item. If you recall our last meeting, we had discussions on the landscaping design for 41, and the discussion, you may remember, I think you recall that we sent a letter to supervisor who were asking for his involvement. We're following up on that. I don't want you to think that we let that slip. That's on the priority list to get that done. Okay, anything else? Without objections, we adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question for you.
Are we off?
So, not yet.
I got a couple of questions for you. Just one question.